Hello, I'm Kieran Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Teagasc Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. Having access to a source of hot water in the farmyard is essential, especially in spring. For some farms, however, there is a requirement to supply larger volumes, either for artificially reared lambs or calves or for general farm use. So what are the options and what suits best? We're joined by Teagasc Researcher Dr. John Upton to shed some light on this topic. John starts by outlining the various heat sources that are available and emphasises the importance of knowing the individual demand on the farm. We discuss the capacity, energy efficiency and running costs of various heating systems. We finish up with John offering some tips on the maintenance of these systems and highlighting some factors that will influence the longevity of the farms. We start off, however, with John explaining why we need to know what the demands are on individual farms.
It's important to have an adequate supply of hot water at the right temperature anyway, is the first point. So you need to get an idea of what sort of volumes you're looking to heat on a daily basis. And then, what temperature should that water be at is another important question. And then that sort of informs what type of system you would go for then after that. Okay, so it starts off with your bog standard basic option would be an electrical water heater from the co-op, say made by Atlantic or some company like that. And they're available in all sorts of sizes. You can start off with your smallest option is like a 10-litre underwater heater, which I suppose isn't much good from a commercial point of view, because once you draw off your 8 or 9 litres out of that, the rest of it's going to be cold, and then it'll take 3 or 4 hours to heat back up again. So that's not much good if you have a bunch of animals to feed or a bunch of equipment to clean or sanitize. So after that, then your next option would be 150 litre would be kind of the next step up, and that's going to cost somewhere in the region of 600 or 700 euros to get up and running. And they go up from there. Then you can get 200, 300 litre systems and so on. So I suppose you want to size the heater such that you can do all your cleaning, washing, feed mixing, and whatever else needs doing in one batch. You don't want to be waiting. You don't want to be drawing off water and then waiting for the thing to heat back up again. So you're going to want to heat with nitrate electricity in the main for these electrical water heating systems. And we can come back to that when we talk about costs in a minute, maybe.
So like John, and your point's well made. Like the under sink heater, it's grand for very quick hand wash and rinse and that kind of stuff. But for anything more than that, it's not going to have sufficient capacity.
No, exactly. Look, they're made for a purpose. They're made for just simple hand washing and so on. They're not designed for kind of industrial environment really at all. So yeah, so, keep that in mind.
If we moved away from electric, are there other options out there?
There are. So there's a convenience element to hot water, okay, and some farmers find that the batch heating systems, like the electrical systems, a bit of a nuisance, especially in the springtime, whereby if you were feeding animals twice a day, let's say, for example, and you drew off your hot water in the morning, early in the morning, then and you wanted hot water again in the evening, the electrical heater mightn't be hot enough by the evening time, and even if it was, you're going to be using day rate electricity all day, which is very expensive to do. So for that reason, I suppose some farmers have migrated on to other more industrial type systems, such as oil fired systems or gas LPG fired systems, and typically they're installed as an instant heating configuration. So both of them would have a similar design principle in the sense that you have your fuel source, which would be a tank of LPG in the gas case or a tank of kerosene in the oil case. You would run those heaters then as and when required, in the sense that once you turn on the tap, the heater would fire up and they'll produce hot water at the desired temperature on demand. So there's no storage required, and you have basically unlimited hot water whenever you need it. And the price is always the same, as another thing, because once you purchase your tank of gas or your tank of kerosene, it's the same price no matter what time of the day you use it. So some farmers see that as a big convenience factor. Now, obviously, there's an additional capital investment required for such a system, because there's a good bit more machinery and so on involved. So we'll say for your average instant oil-fired heater, you're probably going to be budgeting somewhere around the €4,000 mark to get that purchase, and then you'd have installation on top of that. Those systems would provide a decent flow of water. You can get them up to 20 or 30 litres per minute, which is sufficient for most jobs. And then on the gas-fired systems, you can kind of get them in various configurations. So you can get them in banks. You can start off with one heater, which will give you about 10 litres per minute of very hot water. And if you had requirements for additional volume, then you'd multiply them up. You'd put in a bank of 1, 2, or 3, and you'd be looking at probably €1,500 per heater, for a system like that, plus installation. So the investment is obviously much, much greater for the oil and gas fired systems. So you're paying for the convenience factor of them, I suppose. Having said that, the running costs of them are a little bit better. They're substantially better actually than the electrical system. But to justify the investment, you'd want to be using a lot of hot water, like 200 or 300 litres per day, to sort of warrant it.
That oil fired one, that's really high usage. You'd want something other than just basic farm usage from that one.
Yeah, I mean, where you see them going in now would be in the rotary milking part, for example, where you're washing 40, 50 units in a milking machine, things like that.
John, the gas-fired ones, like from the very basic units in them up, there's variation in the flow rate on them too. There's some cheaper units out there. I suppose it all depends on what you want in the flow rate per minute on them.
Yeah, that's right. So again, that comes back to the point of just working out what kind of volume you need. And you want to be filling your tank of water in a reasonable time. Like, you don't want to be waiting more than 10 minutes for you to fill your calf feed or whatever you're doing. I mean, like an ordinary bucket that you have around the farm is going to be 15 litres. So like one heater will heat that, one gas heater would fill that in fairly just a minute and a half, like, which isn't bad. But on the other side of it, like if you were filling a 200 litre powder feed mixer, you're going to be waiting a long time. It wouldn't be good enough for that. So no. You've definitely got to keep that in mind. Like,
and unfortunately, you could wander off in the middle of an overflow, which can happen with them slower fillers. But so
yeah,
look, you're right. So you're right at the start. You have to spec for what you actually need, and there are options out there. John, you touched on this bit a few times in terms of energy efficiency, and it's something we're all becoming a bit more conscious of, given the increase in costs. The variation in them for the electric one, if you're on a night rate, yes. If not, it's an expensive system.
It is, yeah. So the night rate electricity heating system is going to cost about €2.10 to heat 100 litres of water from cold to 80 degrees. Now, in fairness, 80 might be a bit OTT for some applications, but for cleaning and sanitizing equipment, you probably would want it that hot, But then if you were to heat that water with electricity on day rate, you're looking at a price of €4.20 nearly. So you really don't want to be heating too much water on day rate. It just gets very expensive fairly fast. Okay. In contrast with that, then your gas-fired system would be about €1.20 currently at current prices, which is, it's a good bit cheaper. And your oil-fired system is in around that again, €1.22. So they're the ballpark running costs that you'll be looking at.
I suppose the big advantage of them latter two is you have paid up front.
Yeah, you have paid up front, and you have a system with fairly low CO2 emissions from them as well, and they're convenient, which is a big bonus for a lot of farmers.
John, just maybe last, like in terms of maintenance costs with these, and I know it's not necessarily your field expertise, but one thing in any of these systems, it's great you can go in, turn it on, and it works. Is there any big glitches in any of these systems, or anything you need to be aware of servicing wise?
Yeah, one thing that can put a major spanner in the works now of any of those units would be if you were in an area of hard water, you can have substantial lime scale build-up fairly quickly, and that destroys the efficiency of the units and obviously reduce their lifespan then as well. So I definitely recommend getting a water sample tested for hardness. And if your water comes back as being hard, you would need to put a water softener in just to soften the water that's going to the heater. There's no need to soften the water for the whole farm. It's not required, but specifically just a small unit for the heater would be highly recommended. In addition to that, then really there's no maintenance as such with the electrical heating systems. They'll run away forever really without any maintenance. On the oil and gas, then like you're dealing with a fuel combustion boiler essentially, and it's recommended for all of those units that they receive an annual maintenance on a once a year basis anyway, at least, just to keep them cleared out of any sort of debris that would be there to maintain the efficiency. With the gas systems, then there's a small annual fee for the rental of the gas tank if you're going for a substantial size gas tank. Other than that, really, that's kind of the main ones that I can think of.
Okay, so like what you're trying to do is just improve the lifespan of the machine as well as everything else, particularly in that hard water area.
Exactly, that's the big one.
So John, look, there's a few options out there. As again, it goes back to where you started with it. You spec it for what you actually need.
For sure, yeah. Look at the requirements and design the system to suit. That would be the best advice I could give anyone.
John, it was good getting that update from you today. Really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Good to talk to you.
We'll leave it there for this week's episode. I'd like to thank John again for coming on with us and shedding some light in the area, highlighting the pros and cons of the various systems and the importance of speccing it correctly for what we actually require on farm. That's it for me. For updates from our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Cian Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and get notified of new episodes.